So, the gods. They were worshipped, but some of them did some really bad things. Hello everyone, I'm your host Emily, and today we are counting down our top picks for the top 10 dark things gods did in ancient history. Number 10, Apophis. He was the god and demon of darkness, destruction, chaos, and evil. It's said that he caused unexplainable darkness like solar eclipses, storms, earthquakes, and was often depicted as a huge serpent with tightly compressed coils. Apophis was perhaps the only Egyptian god to be all-powerful, with an army of demons at his disposal. The evil god was not worshipped, he was feared. It is also believed that no matter how many times he was challenged, he could never be entirely vanquished. In Egyptian mythology, Apophis was also the arch-enemy of the great sun god, Re. Each time Re sailed on his barge into the underworld, Apophis would attack him to prevent a sunrise. His attack method was a magical gaze that hypnotized Re and his entourage, attempting to devour them as they choked on his serpent coils. He's also known as the Eater of Souls, as he fed on both the living and the dead. This prompted the need for spells to be buried with the deceased, which would protect them against Apophis and his demons. So yeah, he just did bad things on purpose for no reason. Sounds like a great guy. Number 9. Seth. Seth is the ancient Egyptian god of war, chaos, and storm. He was initially a benevolent god and was one of the 5 deities established after the creation of the world. However, he grew resentful of his brother, Osiris, who was the ruler of the newly created Egypt. The last straw was when his wife was attracted to Osiris and committed infidelity. As a result, Seth brutally murdered his brother and was proclaimed as the first murderer. He hacked Osiris's body into pieces and dispersed it so he could not be resurrected. He subsequently took the throne of Egypt, and his reign was filled with chaos, storms, and droughts. Not to victim blame here, but I feel like this is a reasonable reaction to your wife cheating on you with your brother. Number 8. Ammit. Ammit, known as Devourer of the Dead, is sometimes classified among the ancient Egyptian gods, but she is more accurately assigned the role of a demon or a sinister goddess of the underworld. She was the forequarters of a lion, the hindquarters of a hippopotamus, and had the head of a crocodile, which were the 3 largest man-eating animals known to ancient Egyptians. She's a patron of death and execution. Ammit devoured the Ba, the physical manifestation of the soul that could wander, but also was required to climb the ladder to heaven and retain immortality. The other part of the soul was the Ka, the life force of the soul. When combined, they produced the divine spark of life. The idea of having one's Ba devoured by a monster, leaving them a fragment of a soul, horrified many Egyptians. Ammit lived near the scales of justice in Duat, the Egyptian underworld. In the Hall of Two Truths, the heart of a person was weighed against a feather. If the heart was judged to be impure, weighing more than the feather, Ammit would devour it, and the person undergoing judgment was not allowed to continue their voyage towards immortality. Once Ammit swallowed the heart, the soul was believed to become restless forever. This was called to die a second time. Ammit was also sometimes said to stand by a lake of fire. In some traditions, the unworthy hearts were cast into the fiery lake to be destroyed. Number 7. Khonsu. Khonsu was a god of the moon and time. It was thought that Khonsu could influence the fertility of both the people and their livestock, and one myth gives him a prominent role in the creation of the universe. He was also revered as a god of healing, but Khonsu also had a darker side. During the early part of Egyptian history, he seems to have been considered a violent and dangerous god. He appears in the human eater hymn as a bloodthirsty deity who helps the deceased king to catch and eat other gods, and the coffin text described him as Khonsu, who lives on the hearts. Yet by the New Kingdom, he was worshipped primarily as gentle and compassionate, so who really knows? Number 6. Hell. Hell was from Norse mythology, originally the name of the world of the dead. It later came to mean the goddess of death. Hel was one of the children of the trickster god Loki, and her kingdom was said to lie downward and northward. It was called Niflheim, or the world of darkness, and appears to have been divided into several sections, one which was the shore of corpses. There stood a castle facing north. It was filled with the venom of serpents, in which murderers, adulterers, and purgers suffered torment, while the dragon Nidhogg sucked the blood from from their bodies. So yeah, her kingdom was filled with horrible people who were tortured, and I feel like that isn't even that bad. Number 5, Hades. Hades was the ruler of the underworld, or Tartarus as it was called. Being a dark and gloomy job, he was keen to cheer things up a little, and to do this he had his eye on Persephone, the daughter of the god Demeter. So what did he do? Hades came along in a chariot, swooped Persephone up, and took her down to the underworld. As if kidnapping and forcing someone to be your wife isn't bad enough, he neglected to care for her. When in Persephone's absence, Demeter was stricken with grief, and nature itself began to die. Spending her time searching for her daughter, the goddess of harvest wasn't doing her job. All the crops died, nothing would grow, and the leaves fell from the trees. Needing to intervene, the gods joined the search and discovered Persephone in the underworld and demanded Hades let her go. But Hades, determined to not lose his queen completely, tricked her into eating some pomegranate seeds, as those who ate from the depths of hell must always return. So Persephone went back to Earth for 6 months every year. Demeter, being delighted at the return of her own daughter, was able to return to work, crops began to grow, flowers bloomed, and the leaves returned to the trees, giving, of course, the seasons. He kidnapped someone, which led to nature dying. Sounds like a nice guy. Number 4, Lilith. Lilith is a female demon of Jewish folklore. There are many fables surrounding this god. Some texts claim that Lilith was the first wife of the Bible's Adam and was created on par with him. However, Adam disliked her lack of subservience, so she abandoned him. Then God made an obedient wife, Eve. Consumed by jealousy, Lilith turned into a snake and tempted Eve with the forbidden apple. After the couple was banished from the Garden of Eden, Lilith transformed into a demoness, vowing her revenge on all men. Due to her bitterness and subsequent inability to bear children, Lilith was also known to threaten women in childbirth. She could only be thwarted by an amulet inscribed with the names of 3 angels, which was placed around a newborn baby's neck. Those angels were those supposedly sent by God after Lilith refused to submit to Adam. In her rage, she had flown to the Red Sea, a place full of lascivious demons. There, she bore a demonic brood of more than 100 a day. The angels threatened to drown her in the sea, but she bargained with them, consenting to allow some of her demonic children to die day after day. This agreement is why the angels' names were engraved on the amulets. When Lilith sees their names, she remembers her oath and leaves the children alone. I'm sorry, but hurting newborn children who haven't done anything, that's not nice. Those poor babies. Number 3, Poseidon. Poseidon was one of the 12 Olympians in ancient Greek religion and myth, god of the sea, storms, earthquakes, and horses. He was known for his fast-changing temperament and being easily offended. And because he was also dignified and competitive, it was very important not to offend him or argue his statements and acts, which is honestly relatable. Those who angered him became the victims of his wrath. He was known for causing major catastrophic events such as floods, earthquakes, and sea storms, and even unleashed his sea monsters in order to get even. Poseidon was also very lustful and selfish when it came to women. He had numerous affairs with both goddesses and mortals, by either seducing them or tricking them by changing his form. One of these women actually was Medusa. Now, number 2. Athena. Athena is known as the patron saint of Athens, and it's how the city got its name. While she's known as being the wisest of the gods and a level-headed strategist, like the others, she had a dark side. You've most likely heard of Medusa, the snake-headed monster whose gaze turns people into stone. What you might not know is that Medusa wasn't always like this. She was in fact a beautiful mortal. A mortal who unfortunately attracted the attention of Poseidon, who violated her in Athena's temple. When Athena found out her temple had been defiled in such a way, her rage was not directed at Poseidon, but upon poor Medusa. Like, that makes any sense. She punished Medusa with a head of serpentine locks and looks that could kill. Literally. Another instance where Athena showed her dark side involves the myth of Arachne, a beautiful and talented weaver. Arachne made the mistake of boasting these talents, saying she was the best in the world. When Athena heard about this, she challenged her to a competition. But what Arachne weaved was a depiction that mocked the gods. For her indiscretion, Athena punished her by turning her into a spider. I think Athena is just really insecure, but she didn't have to do all those things. And coming in at number 1 is Lamashtu. The Mesopotamian goddess demoness Lamashtu is the most terrible of all female demons. Fittingly, her name means she who erases. Lamashtu enacted various other evil deeds. She disturbed sleep and brought nightmares. She killed foliage and infested rivers and streams. She bound the muscles of men and brought disease and sickness. Amulets depicting the lion-headed bird-clawed Lamashtu were worn by an expectant mother to defend herself against the demoness. Despite her dark supremacy, Lamashtu had a weakness, the plague bringer Pazuzu. He was summoned by women to protect them from the true evil Lamashtu. It's unknown whether Pazuzu did this because he felt sympathy for the expectant mothers or he simply hated the demoness. Well, that's all for our list of the top 10 dark things gods did in ancient history. I definitely wouldn't want to get on any of their bad sides. Which god scares you the most? Comment down below and make sure to like and subscribe. I'm your host Emily, and I'll see you next time. Peace.